Let's talk with your host, Reggie B. Come on, let's all join in. Free your voice, it's your choice, alright here. Oh, simply straight talk.
Hey, are you home?
Yeah, what's going on?
Come over here, quick, like right now.
Is everything okay? What's up?
Pig feet and peanut butter. Pig feet and peanut butter.
Shoot, I am on the way.
He needs to hurry up. Hey there, come on in.
What's up? You good? Talk to me. What's going on?
Okay, hey, relax. Calm down. I know this may be a silly question, but why do you have a frozen gallon of water?
Calm down. You gave me the emergency password. So I'm up here in full Lil John mode, knocking heads off mode right now.
So that's why you came up here with a frozen gallon of water in a plastic container.
Oh, well, I was in the kitchen and forget all that. What did you give the emergency password for anyway?
Oh yeah, sit down and listen to this.
Okay, I'm listening.
Well, I think it's time for me and Jay to break up. Now, he's a good guy, but we don't seem to mesh well in certain areas, especially in the bedroom. He's just so, how do you say it, boring.
Hold up, wait. You used the emergency word to tell me that you about to break up with Jay?
Yeah, because it's an emergency. And I use the emergency words, not the emergency word.
Oh, come on.
Are you going to listen like a good friend would or complain?
Okay, I'm listening.
Good. Now, as I was saying, when it comes to the bedroom game, I just can't get into it. And after several years, it's like eating the same sandwich every day and nothing else.
Okay, I get it. Did you tell him?
Yes, we have talked about it, and he doesn't want to do anything else but the same old boring routine that never pleases me.
Wow. Now, that's a lot. Listen, I think you two should get counseling if you really want it to work. If not, then you may have to face the reality that things are not going to work out with you two as far as a relationship.
You are so right. I knew you would agree that breaking up is the best thing. That's why we get along so well. You understand me?
Hold on now. I didn't say just break up like that. I also mentioned counseling.
Yeah, you said counseling, but I tuned you out until you started saying what I wanted to hear.
Are you serious?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, by the way, you know you my bestie.
Really?
For sure. Who else would come rescue me with a frozen gallon of water? Welcome to the Simply Straight Talk Show, a podcast about real life with real talk. Each week, we deliver the best hard-hitting conversations on topics that affect you and me every day on this journey called life. Now, here's your host, Reggie Maddox.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Season 7 of the Simply Straight Talk Show. And this is the first show of the new season. And I just want to say thank you, and I really appreciate all of the love and support, and that comes from you, the listeners. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now today, I hope you really enjoyed the topic that I have prepared for you today, because today, I want to talk about sexual incompatibility in relationships. Now, when we talk about this subject, because I was kind of like, trying to feel like what do most people think about it when they get into this conversation. And when most people think about or talk about this subject, it's always based around pretty much one question. You know, is the sex bad? And that's what they base it on. You know, sexual incompatibility is bad sex. Well, not necessarily, because there are other factors that do play a part in the reasons why a couple may become sexually incompatible. And when we talk about being sexually incompatible, we got to kind of look deep a little bit to kind of understand this. And I don't think this is a conversation that many people have at the beginning of relationships or before they get into get to the point where they say, we're going to become a serious couple. You know, we're going to be me and you. We're exclusive. But I think this conversation kind of does need to take place. Not in the beginning, but it does need to take place. Because relationships are something that we all want. You know, everybody wants to feel like they found that special partner that's going to stand by them emotionally, spiritually, and physically throughout their life. And we all know that it's not easy trying to maintain a relationship because you're always going to be dealing with things such as finances, health issues, careers. You know, there may be children involved. You know, there's just all these other variables that you have to consider when you're going into a relationship. Now, that doesn't mean that your relationship has to be hard or is going to be hard. It just means that you have to have an understanding where both partners need to understand that those aspects of each other. You need to understand each other's career, whatever your goals are. You need to understand your financial situations, health issues down the line, especially if you're someone that maybe has a health condition that you know is going to progress over time and get worse to where your partner is going to have to be the one that may have to take care of you. So when we think about those things in regards to relationships, you know, we already know that there are a lot of factors to consider going into a relationship. And now we have to add sex to the conversation because many people, I don't know if you believe this, or now some people have actually said this, that they will end a relationship despite having all the things I just mentioned above, all the things that we just talked about prior here. People will end a relationship if the sex is bad. Now, you know, I don't know, because if the sex is not working, I guess their mindset is like the relationship is not going to work. Because sex is basically giving you that physical stimulation. That's what it is. Now, some people say to have sex, that then you got to have chemistry with a person. Now, let's just be honest. There are times when you start getting urges or you start feeling a certain way that you begin to say to yourself, listen, I just need it. If that person is clean and they cool, you know, I'll take it and we just go our way. So chemistry is not always a factor. I think chemistry comes in when you're talking about you want to be in a relationship with somebody. But when you just get those urges, sometimes people just don't care. That's not everybody. But some people will call a friend. They don't have any type of, you know, romantic chemistry with that person. It's just that they feel like that person will give it to them because they need it and that's it. And they understand. It's friends with benefits. So it's not necessarily always about chemistry when it comes to that. But let me ask you, do you agree? Do you feel like if the sex is not good in a relationship, would you leave? Despite, let's say the finances was good, the health was good, you both had good careers, the person treated you good, okay? They do. They treat you really good, but the sex isn't working in the relationship. You're not pleased. They don't seem to be pleased. What would you do? Would you leave the relationship? Would you try to talk it out? How would you deal with it? I mean, what would you do? Would you actually say, you know what? You're a good person. You're a good man. You're a good woman. But honestly, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. The sex is just it's not pleasing me and I can't do it. Could you walk away from a relationship if you had all those things that were in place? Now, that's a good question. Okay. So now some people probably said yes. Some people said no, but let's go over some signs of sexual incompatibility. Let's look at some things. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are kind of the four main things that I figure most people go through when they're dealing with sexual incompatibility. Now, there are other things, but these are the four top things that I think most people go through when they're dealing with sexual incompatibility. The first one I want to mention is the partners can't seem to get in the mood at the same time. Now, we've all had this. One person's in the mood. They want to do it. They want to be loving. They want to be passionate, or they just want to be freaked. And the other person's like, no, I'm not in the mood. I'm not feeling it. Now, some people assume that that's because, people get in the mindset of, they don't like me. They don't want to be with me. That's not always the case, because sometimes when partners are not in the mood at the same time, this could be from unresolved issues from maybe a previous argument. Maybe you got in an argument, like, say, a couple weeks ago, and it kind of threw the relationship off. If you haven't fully resolved the issues from that relationship or the emotions, you're going to be off track. Because if you guys was doing good and having regular sessions, then all of a sudden, when you think the sessions are going to happening, they're not happening. So now you got to deal with the fact of, maybe something was unresolved from a previous argument. It could be stress on their job. They could be dealing with something that's just sort of killing the mood, it's killing the vibe. You know what I'm saying? It could be financial issues. They're worried about the household. They're worried about bills. And sometimes, yes, you can use sex as a way to sort of a distraction from real life. But sometimes when you are really when you're in a relationship with somebody you care about, and you know that your livelihood is in jeopardy, it can sort of kind of kill the mood, because you're worried, even though you want to be with that person and you love that person, but in your mind, you're like, wow, I'm dealing with us maybe losing the house, losing the car, the lights being turned off. How am I going to pay this? She's expecting this. He's expecting that. You put so much pressure on yourself about the expectations of what you should be doing outside of the sexual aspect of the relationship that you just can't seem to get in the mood. So sometimes that's why partners can, kind of be out of sync when it comes to not being in the mood at the same time. There's different reasons, because I want you to understand it's not always about cheating. And I think a lot of people go to that. But that's why I say it's important to talk, and you got to be able to resolve issues, pay attention to what happened in the relationship prior to the mood changing and things switching. Number 2, different levels of sex drives. Now, simply put, some people want sex often, whereas other people are happy with sex maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. It happens. You got a person that can some people are like, look, listen, I want it every day. Some people 2 times a day, 3 times a day. But then you have those people who are like, listen, I just want sex once a week, once every 2 weeks. I'm good. It doesn't mean that we can't cuddle or kiss, but to them, it doesn't mean that they don't love their mate. It doesn't mean that they're not cheating, but to them, sex is just not an essential part of the relationship. And for people like that, their mindset is just basically like, their time. They're more based on the mental connection than the physical connection. And whereas other people like, listen, I like the physical. I like the mental. I like the emotional connection, but you got to lay down that physical connection just as good. So for people who are dealing with that, you got to have an understanding. You got to come to a balance. You got to bring a balance to that. So you got to be able to meet each other halfway. Number 3. Now, number 3 is a good reason that people have problems with reasons number 1 and 2. And that's communication of your sexual desires. Now, this can result from like a feeling of embarrassment, religious beliefs, fear of partners' reactions. Communication in sexual desires, I'm talking about you need to discuss your fantasies, your dreams, what you like, what you don't like. And this is a big thing because a lot of people don't have this conversation. Some people are insecure. Some people feel like their partner may judge them or feel like they are weird or a freak or something. But you need to express this, because if you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to get in a relationship and you're going to find like, man, this is boring. It doesn't change. It's so routine. So you need to actually talk about your sexual desires. You need to come to that, have that conversation. Because if you don't communicate your sexual desires, the things you like when it comes to sex, then you're going to have a real problem actually overcoming the sexual incompatibilities that you may face in your relationship. And that's the point, is to be able to discuss these things and actually work them out. Number 4 is sexually experienced versus the non-sexually experienced. Now, a sexually experienced person is someone who, like, they have explored sexual options. They know what they like because they've tried it, basically. You know what I'm saying? And they know what they don't like, for the same reasons. They've tried it. Their experience may have not, it may not have always been with multiple partners. It could have been with one partner through various relationships. So they know what they like because they have experienced sex, more often than the other person. And so when you talk about this type of person, they tried the different things. They've seen the different things. So, they are more versed to go out and be spontaneous and try different things. Whereas the non-sexually experienced person, on the other hand, they may seem boring or uninteresting because they haven't been out there like that. Their version of sex that they have been introduced to has probably been, okay, just a missionary style, a little kissing, a little hugging. They don't get into all of the positions. They don't get into, the fantasies or the role playing or any of that stuff. They don't get into it. Now, they might, if they are actually brought into it or it's brought to them in a way to where it's something they're willing to try, but it doesn't mean they're going to like it. But some people may not seem to really get into it. And I think when we're talking about sexual incompatibility, this can also result from couples jumping into something too soon. You know what I'm saying? Before taking the time to get to know each other and filling each other out, their expectations are going to be so high because you can look at a person, and we do it. Sometimes women will look at men and have this idea of the man based on what they see, his physique or whatever, and make the assumption of what it would be like to be in bed with this person. Sometimes men will look at a woman and say, wow, you know what? I bet you're in bed. She would do this. She would be like that. Both sides do it. I remember Nene Leakes was on a TV show one day and they was talking about that. And Nene Leakes was like, I'm a lazy person in bed when it comes to sex. She said she's lazy. And you know what? You do have people that's like that. Some people do not believe in just going out all extra. They like to lay there and that be it. But you have to understand that, when you jump into the bedroom and the intimacy too soon, you may find that you have set your expectations so high that your partner is unable to deliver. Sometimes there's nervousness. Sometimes there's just, two people that just can't seem to get the stroking and the motions right, and it just doesn't feel good for either partner. But what we're going to do is take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go in deeper in this and have a more in-depth discussion and talk about some of the things you should be prepared for when you have the conversation. But also, we definitely want to talk about the timeline for having this conversation. So stay tuned. We'll be right back right here on the Simply Straight Talk Show.
You're listening to Simply Straight Talk.
Hey, are you looking for some great music, upbeat and with a positive voice? Well, the song I Stand With You is exactly what you need. This timeless song has a pop version sung by Audrey Carmel. And a reggae version sung by General Steele, now known as Revelation.
Now I know some days you may feel blue, Lord. Trust in your greatness to see you through.
These songs are now available on iTunes and other digital platforms for download. Don't miss out. Get your copy today.
Give life your best, and I know.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
Hey, everybody, welcome back, and thank you for sticking with us throughout the break. Today, we are talking about sexual incompatibility in relationships. Now, in having this conversation earlier in the show, I gave you 4 of my top reasons for why I feel most people do end up becoming sexually incompatible in relationships. Now, that is not an all-inclusive list. There are surely other factors that play into it, but those are the 4 I thought were the most common. My personal, okay? That's just my personal thoughts. So, just a quick recap. I said when partners can't seem to get in the mood at the same time. That was my first one. Then I said different levels of sex drive. Then I said the communication of sexual desires. Then my 4th one was sexually experienced versus someone who's non-sexually experienced. So those are my 4 reasons for why I feel a lot of people end up being sexually incompatible in relationships. One of the things that popped up during the conversation was, when do you have the discussion? Now, honestly, I don't feel I can tell you when is the right time to have this discussion, but I think it's important that people have a conversation about sex. But for many people, like I said, I think the big question is, when is the right time to have this conversation? I would say definitely not on the first date. The first date, if you're going out with somebody, should not be about sex. But we all know that there are men and women out there that do go on a first date thinking that, I'm going to get some or I want some. No, if you're really interested in somebody, that's not what the first date should be about. So that this should not be the first conversation on the first date. But like I say, I can't tell you what your vibe is or what you two feeling. But if the conversation does come up, be responsible about the action you take after the conversation. Matter of fact, for some of y'all, it might wake you up to realize that you might be dating the wrong person. I'm just saying. But anyway, because you can't control when someone is going to want to have sex and with who. But we all have to understand the importance that, you should be wise about your sexual encounters. You know what I'm saying? You have to be smart about it. And a lot of people, they do rush. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they've been alone for a while. They've been single for a long time. But the thing about it is, a lot of people make rush decisions because they're feeling the moment. And the moment is not always good. Okay? And when you start feeling like that, sometimes go back to your past that got you to the moment where you're at now. But the thing about it is, we all have to have, the understanding that this is important, that you should be wise about your sexual encounters, but to keep the conversation moving, let's say you have been dating someone for a while and you feel you're ready to take it to a more intimate level. Then you say, okay, I need to have the conversation. All right. Now, when we say dating for a while, I'm not talking about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'm talking about, let's say that, both of y'all have just decided that you're not going to have any intercourse for like 6 to 8 months. You know what I'm saying? Because you want to get to know each other, really understand each other. Okay. So now you reach the point to where you feel like you want to take the relationship to the next level, the bedroom. When you have the conversation, okay, and you're talking about these things that could potentially lead to sexual, incompatibility, one of the things you got to understand that when you're having a conversation with your mate, and this is not just if you're talking about we may have sex, this also applies to if you're in a relationship with someone now and you feel like your relationship, you guys are incompatible sexually. This also applies to you being in a relationship and going into a relationship. So it covers both bases. All right. But the first thing I want you to consider is that this conversation is going to be uncomfortable for one of you or both of you. Okay. It is going to be an uncomfortable conversation. So you have to be able to just kind of be patient with each other when asking questions or discussing this conversation. Be patient. Don't rush for answers because they're trying to figure you out. You're trying to figure them out. They don't want to, they're worried if they say this, you're going to react like this. So be patient, okay? Be patient. This is an uncomfortable conversation for both people. Second, you have to be honest in this conversation about what you like, what you don't like, what you want to try as far as fantasies. And just keep in mind, that you're expressing what you like and don't like. And if you don't like something that the other person is saying they want to try, then you got to be honest and say, you know what? I don't think I want to try that. Some people like anal, some people don't. Some people like oral, some people don't. You got to be honest about what you like and what you're willing to try and what you're what you are not willing to try. And keep in mind now, because this is what I tell people. A lot of people that watch porn, and there are some people that don't watch porn. But you got to remember, you might see stuff in porn that you may feel like, oh man, that's turning me on. I like that. I like to try that. But in reality, and in the moment when you're actually doing it, you may not feel the same. Because I know people who have tried a threesome and then come to find out that once they actually got in the act of physically doing it, in reality, emotions got involved. It was not a good thing. So sometimes just having that fantasy is one thing, but reality is another. Keep that in mind. And then second, keep in mind that sexual incompatibility in relationships, it can lead to infidelity. It can lead to constant conflicts and aggressive behavior from one or both partners. Because when you got sexual incompatibility, you got one partner that may be feeling like they don't like me, they don't like my body, or they may feel like, oh, maybe they found somebody else or somebody who's more attractive, or maybe I'm not doing it right. So you got all this frustration because when you are not unable to release your sexual tension, yes, frustration is going to build up. It's not only sexual, it's the fact that trying to figure out what is going on with your partner. And that frustration builds up. It leads to attitude, sarcasm, snappy comments, and it can eventually lead to the fact that a person will cheat. Hopefully not, but it can. So that's something else you got to keep in mind, because people who have a high sex drive, who are dating someone with a low sex drive, they feel like they can't get it enough. And unless those two come to a common ground or a balance in how to work that out, then you might have a partner. If she has a high sex drive and you're not giving it to her enough, she may start flirting with other people just for that attention, or just, dressing up a little more, looking good, not intentionally going out to meet somebody, but just to have somebody tell her she look nice and flirt with her so she can get that arousal if she's not getting it at home. And the same thing with men. Men would do the same thing. And here's one of the most important things I want you to keep in mind when you have this conversation. You must be willing to listen and not be judgmental. Because if you're dating someone, let's put it like this. If I'm dating a woman and I tell her, you know what, I've always wanted to try a threesome. I've always wanted to try watching other people have sex. Maybe I just wanted to, try it outside one time, do it somewhere in a public place. When you got people who have fantasies like that, you can't judge them, because sometimes it's like, yeah, it sounds good. The thought is good, but I don't know if I can go through with it. And sometimes people just like the thought more than they do the physical action of doing it. Now, if someone does like the physical action of actually doing that, then you just got to be willing to listen to them. And you got to just get all that out. Like, do you actually want to try that? And be honest with yourself and them. Are you willing to try that? But you can't judge them and say, oh, you like doing that? Oh, you a dog, you dirty, you're a slut, you're this. You can't get into that mindset, because you can have a good person, but that person just may have a wild side when it comes to the bedroom or sexual activities. But you need to be honest about that, because what you don't want to do is just judge a person and throw them away for the wrong reasons. And that brings us back. Now, after hearing what we discussed today, do you think you would break up with somebody if you're sexually incompatible? Would you break up with them over it? Or have you heard some ideas from today's show that might help you or encourage you to kind of work through it. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully it gave you some good tips. But you know what? We got to take a quick break. And when we come back, I'll be right back with the final thoughts of today's show on sexual incompatibility.
We'll be back with your host, Reggie, on Simply Straight Talk.
Hey, this your man Reggie here. Are you looking for some fresh new music? Are you looking for an artist that's got that positive vibe and that positive flow, that knows how to flow lyrically? Then man, you need to check out Tone G Music with songs like Buzzin', Good Deeds, and Pick Up the Phone. Now these songs are available on Apple Music and other digital platforms. Tone G brings that positive vibe in everything he does. And the music he brings with the reggae style and that smooth lyrical flow, oh, you know what to do. Y'all check out Tone G Music.
Are you ready for the straight truth? Reggie, what's the final word for today?
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the final thoughts of today's show. Today we talked about people that are involved in relationships to where they're feeling like they're now becoming sexually incompatible with their mate. You know, as we go through life, we have to keep in mind that there are other things that affect our drive, our urges, our moods. So it's possible that your mate is not cheating on you. That's not always the case. You know, if you listen to the first part of the show and the second part of the show, we discuss some things that actually happens in life that can cause a person to feel, not really in the mood to be romantic or sensual at certain times. And we have to consider that. But I also stress the fact that I really feel like you have to communicate. You have to communicate what it is you are expecting from your partner when it comes to the bedroom. And I understand that it's not always an easy conversation. It is not always a conversation that you're going to come out on the winning end of. Because when you start getting into what a person's desires are, some things you're going to find like, well, okay, we on the same page. Other things is going to be like, whoa, no, I am never doing that. And that's okay. But the key thing is you have to be able to have these conversations, because if you don't discuss, the areas of your life that you are, sexually active in, you know what I'm saying? Your desires, your fantasies, the things you like, the things you want to try. What you don't want to do is bring somebody into a relationship with you when you're a person that's very, not saying you out there trying to sleep with everybody, but you got these things that you really like doing. You know what I'm saying? You're really a wild person when it comes to the bedroom, but you're dating somebody who's more, they're just more like, listen, missionary, kiss, cuddle, that's it. We're happy. And they're happy because that's all they really enjoy. So you need to be honest about the fact that if you two don't mesh like that, to have that conversation before somebody gets hurt or before somebody feels like I need to be fulfilled and this person can't do it, so I'm going to go find somebody else to do it. And sometimes that does happen. Sometimes, as I said in the end of the show, sometimes people can get so frustrated because they don't have that release that they become angry, they become sarcastic, they just become, very nitpicky and bitter because they're frustrated and they can't get it out because they don't have that physical stimulation that they can release. And if their partner can't do it, then sometimes they will step out. Hopefully not. Hopefully it can be worked out. But you have to keep in mind, and never be ashamed to say, listen, let's go get some counseling to help in this. Maybe it's something that we can resolve together through counseling. I'd rather you take the effort with counseling rather than to take the steps and actually have somebody hurt. You know what I'm saying? You don't want a person to feel bad for being who they are and liking what they like and what they don't like. Allow them to find somebody that they can mesh with. But you know what? I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And I hope you understand that I wanted to talk about this because we need to have clarity when we go into relationships about what we're doing and who we're with, and be respectful to say, listen, I can rock with you and vibe with you on these other things, But when it comes to the bedroom, I'm sorry, I'm not into threesomes. I'm not into voyaging. I'm not into rimming and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be mindful of that type of stuff. And because sometimes, you could throw away a really good man or a really good woman over something that you guys can work through, but because you feel like they're not at your level when it comes to the bedroom, you're throwing away a good person. And you're going to go out there and find somebody who really is a dog, or, somebody that you just don't want to deal with. But hey, thank you for listening to the show today. I hope you guys got some great information, some great tips. Thank you as always for your support. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to join us right here next Friday on the Simply Straight Talk Show.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Simply Straight Talk podcast. Make sure you visit our website at rmviagem.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Libsyn, SoundCloud, or Spotify, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that will help us out too. Thank you, and see you next week.